Good evening, everybody. Welcome into another Big Man on Campus podcast. Hope you're having a great Monday evening. The tournament is here, and it's time to talk about it. As many of you know, I'm trying to go through all the regions. I hit pretty much every conference tournament, and now it's time to hit some of the regions as we get going. We'll take a look at the East and the West regions. One of our favorite people, one of my favorite college hoops bloggers, it's Barstool Riggs. Riggs, how you doing, buddy?
Good, man. Just weird not having games on tonight.
Yeah, it is. Well, so what? You're not a fan of Quinnipiac and NJIT? None of that?
I mean, it's just you go from conference tournaments. It's hard to switch over and watch
Sure.
the CIT or the CBI or the NIT, whatever it is. So it's just like it is good, like a reset after a few months of just nothing but games, and you go through the 10-day stretch of games for 13 hours. So it's a good reset, but man, it's just a weird feeling.
Have no fear, Riggs. The tournament starts tomorrow.
I know.
We got Prairie View, Fairleigh Dickinson. We got Temple, Belmont. And then the big show gets on a few days later, Thursday. Really kind of just want to get your overall thoughts quickly. I know this year there weren't a ton of surprises. Obviously, the Michigan State, them kind of being seated in the same region as Duke. And, overall, I know we have to put bubble teams in, and I know there are certain teams that maybe feel that they should be in. I saw NC State was whining about the net ranking and things like that. Look, Riggs, I want to get your quick opinion on this. I'm not really sure what Belmont did to warrant being an NCAA tournament team. Again, I know you're going to put them in there, and it's kind of taking care of the people that are, never put any mid-majors in. Did you think they got it right, and do you have any overall issues with this bracket?
Yeah, I have no problem with Belmont getting in. I mean, you look like they challenged themselves in the non-conference. Their overall strength of schedule is okay. Like, it's fine. Like, the league, what helped them is, Murray State being good this year. So you have another decent team in your conference. You get to win at UCLA, and listen, like, I was on with Doug Gottlieb, and he brought up a good point about that win at UCLA. Like, on paper, yeah, it doesn't look as great as, some might think it might be. But one thing to remember is when you are the team in a bye game, like you're the team getting bought to go there, UCLA is dictating the time of the game, the date, the refs, everything involved in it. So even with UCLA being 110th on KenPom, when you factor in the fact that it was assumed to be a bye game, that becomes a little bit more impressive. They sweep Lipscomb, which I think eventually got them in, was that sweep of Lipscomb. Got the win over Western Kentucky. So, like, they did enough for me to be like, you know what, that's like, I had zero problem with them being in. To me, they were the second to last team in, I think. Maybe third to last team if you're asking me if how I would have had the brackets look and everything like that. So I have no problem. I think it's right that they're in Dayton for the first four. I would have had NC State in probably over St. John's and Temple. But again, you're splitting hairs at that point where it's just win one more game, or don't lose at Wisconsin essentially, and NC State's in, which I know sounds a lot easier said than done. But when you're debating especially this year, where like you said, we didn't really have that one team that everybody was just like, well, how the hell did they not get in? Or how the hell did this team get in? It doesn't feel like that this year.
No, it definitely didn't. And I think it's important to say, Riggs, we'll give you a little shit right now. Riggs is not an AAC guy. He hates the AAC.
I just think I don't hate it. I think people, like, I hate AAC fans. I think just don't comprehend, like, you're not a power conference, but you're also not even major. Like, you're stuck in between, and that's going to happen because you have teams that are sub 200, sub 250. I know this year worked out a little bit better because of the Pac-12 being down so bad and the Big East being down. But yes, the AAC should improve, but at the same time, it is what it is, and it's just kind of how it is. But but even looking like you bring up Belmont. Well, at the same time, like you can kind of split hairs. I know you're going to say Temple. Like, what did Temple do to get in?
No, I listen, Riggs. I'm not gonna try to say that I think I think there's things that Temple did and didn't do.
Right.
I think they got a lot of. I do think the fact that Fran Dunphy's his last year. I mean, he is a pretty. People like Fran Dunphy
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
from a
Great
national
dude.
perspective. I can't stand the guy. I think he's a complete imbecile. He's not had any success at this tournament. I will ask you, and again, they had some bad losses. This is a team that lost a lot of games that they should have won. They had leads at the half. I mean, you can't lose to teams like Penn. I know Penn had a good year, but this is a team that lost to Wichita in the first game of their tournament, as you know. Let me ask you, Reeks. Belmont laying 3 in that game. I think Temple's one of the most irritating teams in the country from a shot selection perspective. I've been to many games this year where I just see them take so many bad shots. Quentin Rose, even Shiz Alston, just some bad shot selection. They're playing a team in Belmont who runs just perfect offense. I think seeing Dylan Windler at the next, at obviously the next, this big tournament is great. It's going to be important to get Muzinski back. I think he could really be a kind of a catalyst for them down low. Temples doesn't ever have any good bigs. Any quick opinion on this game? Belmont laying 3.
I think it all depends. Like, this is going to be kind of a last-second bet depending on the health of Muzinski. If Muzinski plays, I love Belmont.
Yeah.
Just because I think that I don't want to play up like the nobody believes in us type thing because Belmont, on Ken Palm is like 30 spots higher, 25 spots higher. But Belmont can play that up, I think, a little bit more, or Rick Bird can play that up a little bit more than Temple can because it's still Belmont, and it's still Temple, so it's easier to do. I think that matters for a first 4 game, where it's, hey, we need to win this to really get into the NCAA. I think Belmont will have kind of more of that chip on the shoulder. But again, it all depends on Muzinski. If Muzinski's there, you have a guy inside that can kill you. You have Windler, and you have Rick Bird's offense. And I don't know I don't think Temple's consistent enough defensively to stop that. Not a great rebounding team. They are an average 3-point defensive team. Belmont can kill you from 3. But again, a lot relies on Muzinski. Muzinski plays, I like Belmont. Muzinski doesn't play, kind of like Temple.
And keep in mind for anyone out there that doesn't understand why, how can you hate Fran Dunphy? He's a legend. Firstly, he's not a legend. Stop saying he's a legend. He's been at Temple since 2006, and he's won 2 tournament games. I mean, he's had some great teams. The Khalif Wyatt, Lavoy Allen, Juan Fernandez teams are terrific. They won 1 game in the tournament. And again, I know players have to win games sometimes, but Fran Dunphy is the most average coach in the history of college basketball. And if you want to dispute that, come in, give facts, because the facts here are he's been very average in his career. He's a Philly guy and he's a nice guy and people like it. But at the end of the day, being a nice guy doesn't translate to winning a lot of the time. And to follow up John Chaney with this is pretty pathetic, frankly. They need a change, and I'm glad they're getting it. Let's move on, Briggs. Let's start to get into some of these, these regions. We'll start with the East. Obviously, look, Duke, the 1 seed, the number 1 seed. I would have quickly just say one thing about Duke. We all know that they can't shoot the 3. How much does that hurt them? Obviously, they're going to have to make some shots because you and I both know, Riggs, for as much as maybe people naturally don't like the AAC or you don't like the AAC, whether it's them or VCU, that's going to be a pretty tough game for Duke. Duke is going to have to make some shots. Both those teams play great defense, particularly UCF. They have guys that like an Aubrey Dawkins that are playing well. And you know better than me, Riggs, it's hard to prepare for a guy like Taco Fall. You just can't really – you can't really – make that, you can't practice that. It's hard to get into the lane. It's hard to do everything. And with short recovery time here, it's hard to prepare for stuff like that. Where do you see Duke's roadblock maybe being? Do you think there is one?
I don't know, man. Like, I don't think – I'm not too worried about that 8-9 game. Obviously, the Marcus Evans injury for VCU is massive. We'll see what happens with him. If he plays, I'll be shocked. That did not look good when he went down. UCF, Taco Fall is 7-6 or whatever, and you can say, well, how do you prepare for him? At the same time, who's he guarding? And I know they run part of that zone, but is he really going to try to step out and defend Zion? He as much as he is a pro at protecting the rim, he's a negative having to step away. And that's just the pros and cons to being that big and playing kind of the way they do. I know what UCF will do. They'll try to slow down the game, limit possessions. They'll run that zone, really pack it in. At the same time, we've seen teams do that to Duke. It's not something they haven't seen before. So I'm not overly concerned with the 8-9 game, and I get why you can say a team like UCF can give them trouble just because of that zone and the way they sag and everything. But like UCF still has to score, and I don't know if they can score on Duke at the same time.
No, I think you're 100% right. That's something that's kind of lost with Duke is
they're really good defensively.
Yeah, the athleticness of them and the tempo sometimes and the ability to kind of score. But this is a real good defensive team. They've been real good defensively all season. Obviously, there's some weird things about. Like, let me ask you, Riggs. You've broken injury news. Like, I've seen you break injury news. Sometimes they report to you. Can I ask you a question? And maybe you might not know any more than I do, but I've been involved a lot with Mississippi State from an over perspective at times, from just betting on them at times. Why is there no info ever on Nick Witherspoon? And again, I'm going to guess he's not going to be back. And even if he was, how much in game shape would he be? Why has Ben Howland been so skeptical to release any info about that?
Why would you?
Well, because I think at some point the fans of the team are owed some kind of explanation, aren't they?
No, I mean, why? Just because they're fans? To me, it's like
it's just odd. You don't normally see that.
Well, so there's a couple of reasons that you could do it. One is, you're obviously going for seeding, and you're working under the assumption of, hey, let's not let the committee know if one of our guys isn't coming back.
Yep.
Let's make them assume like, hey, he might come back. Now, does that affect seeding at all? Who knows? But it's something that you can sit there and at least put in their mind. Hey, maybe Nick Witherspoon's coming back. Maybe we put him at the number 1 5 seed instead of the number 3 5 seed. So that's one reason. Second reason is you don't want opponents to know. Like wait, make them guess during game plan. Make them have 2 game plans, one with Nick Witherspoon, one without. And you can say fan. Like if you're a fan, you'd be like, "Well, I'd like to know."
I guess though, what I'm saying though, Riggs, is like I feel like you would give some sort of idea, like, oh well, he's.
Honestly, if I'm a coach, I wouldn't say anything about any injury. I'd list. I would list everybody's like questionable.
Well, Riggs, I'm a bettor, and I want to know.
Well, sure. From a gambling standpoint, I didn't know. But until there's some sort of regulations that coaches have to say it, and there has to be some sort of injury report.
Yeah.
What you're holding the advantage to your chest as close as possible.
No, you're dead right.
So it's one it does suck from a gambling standpoint, from a fan standpoint, where obviously if you're gambling, you want to know what team am I betting on out here. From a fan standpoint, you want to know, okay, well, I'm just a fan of this team. I'd like to know what the hell we have going on.
All that matters is winning at the end of the day. I get that.
As a fan, if you're a fan, it's easier to say, hey, well, I guess maybe that we did win because they weren't ready for Witherspoon not to be out there.
Sure.
Gambling perspective, yeah. I mean, I'd love everything to be clear and, have a full day to look at what's going on. But
we know it's not like that.
Right. It's just one of those. I mean, as well as I do. At this point, it's just one of those we'll never get, at least, not this year.
Yeah, no, maybe down the road. We talked Duke, Virginia Tech. Obviously, they're going to get someone back, Justin Robinson. I think you and I both know how good they are with Justin Robinson. Curry Blackshear's had a terrific year. I think Buzz Williams is fantastic. This is a team that doesn't go incredibly deep, but they're experienced. They're terrific offensively.
Yep.
And defensively in the half court, they're very good. How good are they with Justin Robinson to you? And is this a spot for Duke? Because, I think we kind of forget. I mean, Zion didn't play in the second game, but again, remember, neither did Justin Robinson. So is this a roadblock? This has to be a roadblock, doesn't it?
It's a potential. I mean, yes, like Justin Robinson is a damn good player. Zion means a lot more to Duke than Justin Robinson means to Virginia Tech.
Sure.
So, and that game was at Virginia Tech too, which is obviously an important thing. Now, one thing that does matter, or one thing that is keep an eye on here, Virginia Tech, like 2 things with Justin Robinson. Or one thing with Justin Robinson is it allows them to really run that 2-point guard set with him and Alexander Walker, which is key. Like Robinson's really good at breaking guys down off the dribble and then kicking. Like there's a reason he's the school's assist leader. And it's because of that ability, but also because Buzz has surrounded him with shooters, right? Like Alexander Walker is what, a 40% 3-point shooter, and they have guys out there that you can really kind of like space the floor out. Alexander Walker's 38, Robinson himself is 41, Hill's 38, Ty Outlaw's 46. So he surrounds stuff. So it's kind of what we saw with like Auburn in the SEC tournament, where, all right, you have to run a guy at Robinson. When you do, he's hitting that open guy. Now you give him up threes. Now you stay at home. Well, guess what? Now the floor opens up even more for Robinson or a guy like Blackshear inside. Defensively, what makes them weird, right? They want to like trap and they want to run a little bit, try to force turnovers. They also give up more looks from three than any other team in the country. More and they're number one. They give up the most point distribution, point percentage. Team scored most point distribution from the 3-point line against them. So that's kind of a weird thing with their defenses. When you think about how they run and trap and everything, you typically assume that they're going to give up buckets at the rim, right? Like breakdown, skip pass, bucket at the rim. They give up threes. Now, that's to me an interesting thing. If they do go up against Duke, is Duke going to settle for those threes? Will they hit the open threes? Are they getting into Reddish with the open threes? Or do they still just do what Duke does and just, lob ahead to Zion and let him go? So I think that's going to be an interesting thing with this. I do think Duke's going to win I think they're going to get out of the region. I think they're beat Virginia Tech, but Virginia Tech to me is the first roadblock.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Riggs, we got a couple, actually we got a good amount of people watching the show live. A lot of great people as always. Thanks for checking out the show here. I got a question here, Riggs. How many points do you think Zion's worth?
9.5.
Really? That many?
Yep.
Wow.
I think almost statistics prove it.
Sure. I read an article, and I'm trying to remember where it was. Maybe it was the Action Network that put it out, kind of describing, from
Stuckey had it where he thought it was about 7.
Yep.
And then after the Carolina game, I think he said 10. I think he went up to 10, and I think it's right around that. Like I don't disagree with him at all. I think 9.5 is a fair number. Just look at the Carolina. Look at the Carolina game. I think that's a perfect example of how much he's worth.
Yeah, I would think maybe 7 to 10, which 9's I thought on a little bit of a high side. But when you make that case and when you look at those games, I think you're kind of right there in the ballpark.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy to think about.
It almost feels low. Like if you told me, like, honestly, if you told me 12, I would still be like, yeah, that I can see it.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how different of a team they are without him.
Well, he lets them do what they do defensively. Like, he lets them switch. He's second in steals. He's first in block. Like, what they do then is their ability to go from defense to offense is predicated on having Zion out there.
Yep.
So you're talking about not only just him going out and scoring, it's limiting. So that's why if you tell me it's 12, I'm going to be like, yeah, I can completely understand that too.
Because it's on both sides of the ball, right? Let me ask you one other thing with the East. I'm not big on LSU. I think they're really dependent on obviously getting into the lane, creating. The 3-point shot's just not there a lot of the time for them. I like Naz Reid a lot. I think he was just dominant, really, against Florida. But again, I mean, we do have to remember that this is the NCAA tournament. This is a trip. This is a coach like Will Wade is important. You're thinking about that. I think LSU's a fine team. I like Waters, but I think Yale's a tough matchup even in the first game. I mean, Yale is a team, as you know, that can score. Miaione's terrific. They don't turn it over. If you're going to give me 8 points, do I think they can win? I'm not sure. I think LSU will find a way. But Riggs, the one issue also that LSU has is this is not a particularly good defensive team. I mean, they really struggled in the half court this year to get stops on a consistent basis. They were just kind of average nationally defensively. What are your thoughts on LSU? This Yale team, pretty efficient.
I do like Yale a lot. You mentioned Oni, who's a top 40 prospect. Copeland's a really good player. Jordan Bruner's a really good player. So they have really good top 3. Well, the difference is, look after the top 3 for LSU, and you're talking about what? Probably Javonte Smart, Emmett Williams, Marlon Taylor. Like, I'll roll with those guys. Yeah, I actually do really like this LSU team. I was super high on them coming into the year. And I know, like, they kind of struggled to start the year, but that was because Tremont Waters kind of struggled to start the year. And as he goes, they go more than I think anyone else on the team. On both sides of the ball, like he's a menace defensively. We've seen him. I mean, dude has gigantic balls. We saw that as a freshman. He's not afraid to take the shot late in the game to win. So if it's a close game, listen, if it's a close game, I know Yale has Oni, and I know that they can give him the ball and let him do his thing. But Tremont like thrives in that, and I think that's huge in the NCAA tournament. I think Reed has come into his own, and same type of thing. Like we saw him hit that three on that veer screen against Florida. Same type of thing. Like if you need a bucket, you have those two guys to play with, right? Give me those two, and I feel pretty comfortable about it. I like LSU's versatility. They're not a super deep team. That's a little concerning. You know, they do have some guys. You know, you look at Darius Days and like I mentioned, Marlon Taylor, and then obviously like Cavell Bigby Williams up top and Emmett Williams up top, but. Yeah, I like this LSU team, man. I am worried about like what happens with Wade. You know, I think it does matter a little bit. I don't think it matters a whole lot. Obviously, the coaching staff now has some more time to kind of prepare for this. But man, if you can just roll the ball out there and go, LSU is one of the top 12 teams in the country.
Yeah, I think you look at, I guess my kind of reasoning, I guess, with maybe taking the points in the first game also is you're looking at top 100 teams, let's say since Christmas. I mean, LSU really hasn't had a lot of, they haven't won by margin really. I mean,
no, they do play a lot of close games. I do like Yale with the points. I hope it gets sped up a little bit where people see it as under double digits and might touch the 9.5, 10 area.
Yep.
If that happens, I'm definitely taking Yale.
That's a good point. It's down to 7.5. I think 8 or more. I'm kind of interested.
7.5. I mean, that's
you're starting.
Then you get into free throws late in the game and everything like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, they've played what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 overtime games, 7 overtime games.
Yeah, it's a lot. And again, a lot of it has to do with the inability at times to get stops. I mean, this is a Yale team. I think the one thing that hurts is they are going to run with LSU. It will be a high-scoring game. I think LSU will surely hit 80. It's the question of, can you get an 82-73, 82-74 type game, something like that? I think it's kind of right near there. Riggs, about to move on here. We'll hit the West, then we'll wrap everything up. Obviously, Duke's the big boy here.
Yep.
Michigan State, obviously down at the bottom. Who gives Duke the best run? To me, I think it's Michigan State.
I think it's LSU.
Okay, interesting.
Because I think that you look at like Emmett Williams is a guy that I think he's the guy in the region that's most suited or best suited to guard Zion.
Mm-hmm.
Like who's like Kenny Gowen's going to guard Zion?
True.
I mean that's also, and then Tremont Waters like him versus Trey Jones, like that's an interesting matchup. And Naz Reid, like he can be a difference maker, like him versus Zion, or Emmett Williams versus Zion. Like they have two different guys there that can kind of give them a different look. I think Mays and Smart and Williams and Taylor can kind of bother Reddish and Barrett. So, and I mean, listen, like Reed's an NBA talent. I think Emmett Williams will eventually be an NBA talent. I think Javonte Smart's potential for an NBA talent. I think Skylar Mays might be an NBA talent. I think Tremont Waters might be an NBA talent. So they have that talent out there too they have more top-end talent than Michigan State from an individual standpoint. Now, obviously, they have Izzo and all that, good stuff. But I think LSU matches up the best against Duke.
Great point. One other question before we go. We had someone asking back to this Temple game. He's asking if Belmont beat Temple, do you think they could beat Maryland or at least cover? Not sure what the spread will be. I think they can. What do you think, Riggs?
I absolutely think they can. I mean, Maryland's an interesting team. Like I like Maryland's setup, but Belmont can just run that offense against them and force Jalen Smith away from the rim. So now you're only dealing with Bruno Fernando at the rim because of Dylan Windler's ability to step out and shoot the ball. And Smith has to respect that. I think they can. I don't know. I don't know if they'll be able to slow down Maryland. That's the one concern. Is can they stop Fernando in the post?
And that seems like what Maryland seems to always have trouble with when they play a high-level defense, which per usual, if you play a high-level defense, generally a team like Maryland will struggle to score. They turn the ball over too much. I'm noticing, you look at some of the recent scores, Riggs, with Maryland, when they play a Michigan, Wisconsin, Michigan State, I mean, they're really struggling to score. Belmont's not a team that's going to give them a ton of pushback defensively. And, it's kind of a Big Ten team versus an OVC team at the end of the day.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see what the line opens at for that one, if Belmont wins, obviously.
Yeah, no, I agree. I would say, I don't know, 5 maybe?
Yeah, maybe. Like it's an interesting one. I'm really curious to see what it is.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Temple's got something to say about it. We'll see if they can find a way. All right, Rick. So it's Duke for you out of the West or East. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I'm taking Duke out of the East.
Yeah, I can't disagree.
It's hard not to. I know it's a 1-game scenario, but it's hard not to.
Yeah, I mean, there are very few teams in this region that match up with them. I think you make a good point about LSU when you kind of look at kind of the outer edges of them and the bench and that kind of thing. But I think if LSU can get by Yale, I don't see a ton of, I think they'll, I think they can beat really any of these teams coming forward. Let's go to the West quickly. I think this is the toughest region.
I agree. I think it's the best. I think it's the most balanced region.
Yeah, I mean,
because you look like obviously like the top 4 is pretty good. You got Buffalo as a 6, Marquette as a 5. The zones in Syracuse and Baylor. You got John Morant. You got Vermont, who's one of the best mid majors, one of the most consistent mid majors. You got Northern Kentucky, who's a really good mid major. You got Florida as a 10, Nevada as a 7. Like it's just loaded up and down.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, you look at even some of the mid majors here. I think you got some good ones. I mean, we all know about Buffalo. I mean, Vermont's really solid. I mean, they have kind of a tough matchup. Even, kind of in your area, Northern Kentucky, John Brennan's team is pretty solid. We all know Syracuse. They sometimes seem to find a way to make a run. Gonzaga's obviously the 1 seed. What's your feel on Gonzaga, Reeks? I got to feel that. I feel like you don't talk about them much.
I love Gonzaga. I absolutely love them. I have no problem with them as a 1 seed. I know people, the moment they lost to St. Mary's, was like, well, they can't be a 1 seed. They lost to St. Mary's. And it's like, listen, I get it. Like, they're not going to have the most impressive resume with quad 1 wins and everything like that. But the metrics love them. So I have zero problem with them as a 1 seed. They pass the eye test. Like, to me, they are one of the 5 best teams in the country. So I have zero problem with them as a 1. The addition of Killian Tilly coming back, just adding that depth, adding even more offense to a ridiculously good offensive team. I am concerned about their defense a bit, but I really like this team, man. They are so good. They're so fun to watch. It's just a brutal bracket for them.
Yeah, I mean, very few flaws. I mean, I think you mentioned maybe defensively at times. Yeah, I'll start towards kind of the end of the WCC season. The 3-point defense is a little weak, but yeah, I mean, offensively they're as good as it gets. Do you think they're the best offense in the country?
Man, that's a good question. I'm trying to think
because I mean, you would probably throw in, obviously North Carolina, Duke.
Yeah.
Do you throw Virginia in there this year?
I would absolutely throw Virginia in there.
You have to.
I think that Gonzaga probably is the best team in the country, or best offense in the country.
Yeah, agreed.
Probably. I mean, the metrics obviously show. Compound says that they are. So I would say probably. I mean, they have so many different guys that can kill you. Like, good luck taking one person away.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, from an offensive metric standpoint, even you look at turnover percentage, are just exquisite. Really every Ken Palm metric. Great foul shooting team. That's why they cover so many games. Real quick, Reeds, they would play the winner of tomorrow's game, FDU Prairie View. For anyone that's curious, maybe doesn't know this, they're living under a rock, they got to play that game in Dayton. You also look at the fact that they then have to play again on Saturday in Salt Lake City, a place that has some elevation, quick turnaround for the most part for very small teams.
Friday, you mean?
Friday.
It's Thursday. It's a Thursday game.
For Gonzaga, I guess you're right.
Yeah, it's
Tuesday,
21st.
Thursday. Yeah, you're right. What am I saying? Either way, though, Riggs, quickly, just a quick opinion here. If you had to lay the biggest margin in the first round. Do you think it's this game? I think Gonzaga just destroys both those teams. Just defensively and the way they play with pace.
I'm trying to think like.
Maybe Iona and North Carolina could be one. Iona might give up 100 in that game, but
they might have. They really might. Duke. I'm gonna guess that.
I mean, do you really think I like Lavelle Moten? I think he's one of the best coaches really nobody talks about, and he probably should be at a better school. And he's got 5 seniors that are really good. I feel like if they're the team that I think might, if they can get a win, I think they can maybe not lose by 30. I just think Gonzaga, they're just so used to just beating up on bad teams.
So is Duke though.
True. They won by 50 if you take.
It's gonna be one of those two. I think the both of those lines will be. It's got to be one of those two.
I agree.
I just don't know which one, but it's got to be one of those two.
Sure, I agree. Up in obviously you're right for Barstool, up in the New York area. You've seen a lot of St. John's. You watch a lot of Big East. I'm not a Chris Mullin guy. I know some people are, and they're not going to fire him because, he's their guy and he's their native son and everything. But what do you think about this first game? Hurley's best defensive team. I think they're going to have some issues with. I mean, they seem to always have issues closing games out. We saw it with, St. Louis yesterday. When you can't make free throws, that is an issue, and it could be a way you lose games. Arizona State is just heinous from the free throw line. What do you like in this game on Wednesday?
Man,
it's so tough.
It really is because you look on paper and you see like Shamori Ponce and Mustafa Heron, and it's like, all right, well, I'll take St. John's every day of the week with those guys.
No bench though for St. John's.
No bench. I think that, but at the same time that you look at Arizona State, it's like, well, they roll out Dort, Cheatham. Remy Martin for Shamori Ponce is going to be a lot of fun. That's going to be a lot of fun, especially if both guys get rolling a little bit. I'm here for Remy Martin versus Shamori Ponce, just heat check after heat check.
Sure. Doesn't it seem like Zylan Cheatham's been in the NCAA for 8 years? I feel like he was at San Diego State, I feel like 6 years ago.
Yeah, he's been there for a while.
He's been around a long time.
I think I kind of like St. John's. No rhyme or reason, just one of those
just feel. I understand.
I trust Shamori Ponce, I guess, more than I trust Dort or Cheatham or White or.
I always hate a team, Riggs, and I'm sure you'll agree. I always hate a team that their number one source of offense is the free throw line, yet they are 65% from the free throw line. That doesn't give me a lot.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. Yeah, that's a concern because Arizona State's great at getting to the line. St. John's fouls a lot too.
Yeah.
So it's
that's my issue.
All right, what happens if St. John's is in foul trouble fairly early? What if Ponce picks up 2 early ones? Or what happens if Heron picks up a couple of early ones?
And again, it's kind of a crisis for St. John's. I talked about that when Mustafa Heron was out for a few games, and I remember them getting whitewashed. I forget who they played. It was kind of towards the end of the season. It's kind of a crisis, people, at this point. I mean, 353 teams in the country. St. John's is 347 in bench minutes. Under 20% of their minutes are from the bench. That's not good.
Yeah, I mean, they just don't. There's just nobody there. I mean,
yeah. It's amazing because
you lose Mikey Dixon.
Yep.
You lose, Sidi Keita didn't really, that's whatever. You're really rolling with just Clark, Simon, Heron, Figueroa, and Ponce. 5
guys. It's crazy. They better hope they don't get a ref, Roger Ayers or somebody. I mean, it could get interesting. They just don't have the bodies. It's that simple. A couple other things here, Riggs. I'm a big Texas Tech guy. I think the way they're shooting right now is just it's fun to watch. Culver's one of the many great players that are going to graduate and move on. Well, not graduate, but move on from Texas Tech. Before I do ask you about them, though, you would agree that Chris Beard's top 7, probably?
Top 10. Yeah, somewhere in there.
Do you see – because I had a theory that Roy Williams would retire and he would go to UNC.
I don't see him at UNC. I think he would rather –
see him at a school that high?
Yeah, but I think he'd rather wait for the Texas job.
Really?
I mean, he's a Texas. He fits in better there.
Yep.
Not to say he wouldn't fit in at UNC. He does have ties there. to the area because he coached at no, I'm thinking of Chris Holtman. He didn't coach at Gardner Webb. So he doesn't even have any ties here, but he was an assistant at Texas. So he's been at Texas Tech forever. He went to Texas. So I think he'd rather wait for the Texas job.
Wouldn't have to go too far either.
Wouldn't have to go too far.
Kind of same recruiting area as well.
So if he does leave for a bigger job, I think it'll be that. As weird as it sounds, like staying in your conference and going, from Texas Tech to Texas.
Yep.
The UNC job feels like, that's just someone that'll stay. That's a job that'll stay in the family.
That's a Hubert Davis job or something.
Hubert Davis. I mean, there's enough UNC guys, depending when it happens, the Wes Miller job. That UNC, like, there's enough blood in the family that you just stay in the family.
Give it to LaVelle Moten. He's good enough.
I think Moten's really good, but I think Moten needs another step up before he's even in the UNC position. But
what about William and Mary for Moten?
Yeah, I mean, listen, like, there's a bunch that makes sense. I mean, Elon just opened up. That's one that could make sense for him. I think William and Mary is a tough job, but that could make sense. Maybe George Washington.
I see they're looking at Thompson, though. I feel like that might be a higher heaven there.
Thompson would be a really good hire there too. I think Moten. I think George Washington would be maybe like, Moten would be lower down on the list for them, obviously. But I think going to a school like Elon or a William and Mary makes a ton of sense. But also, I mean, he might just like staying at North Carolina Central.
He's had a ton of success there. I just think from a perspective of generally when you leave, it's kind of around when you look at you're going to kind of have to reload after this season. I mean,
but they always seem to just kind of reload too.
No, you're right. You're right about that. They are kind of deep. He does have a couple guys coming back, Blunt and Randy Miller. So yeah, we'll see. Just kind of a thought with we kind of went down a rabbit hole there. But Riggs, Nevada. We've heard a lot. A lot of college hoops Twitter. I've gotten into fights with people from CBB Central and all these different places about the Nevada Wolfpack. What is the Riggs thought on Nevada? I think they're a complete fraud.
I like them a lot.
Interesting. Why? Tell me why.
So part of the reason why I think they just kind of sleptwalk through the regular season is they just don't care. You're talking about you're talking about 8 guys that are 22, 23 years old, seniors. Regular season doesn't matter to them, right? Like, they did enough to win the Mountain West. That's all that mattered. Now, obviously, you would like to see them win the Mountain West tournament. I think that makes it a little easier to talk about them that way. But again, like, they know what the end goal here is, and that's Final Four. So, listen, the regular season was somewhat irrelevant to them, and they suffered a couple losses, but they're all on the road. It's not like they were losing home games left and right or anything like that. Their schedule was supposed to be good, and it's not their fault that, BYU was not that good. Loyola ended up being a very average team. Arizona State ended up being a very average team. South Dakota State missed the tournament. UMass ended up taking a huge step back. Utah ended up being a not a great team. So, like, they scheduled what we thought was going to be a good non-conference coming into the year. And then it ended up USC ended up being bad.
Yeah, it's kind of
so. Everyone was like, well, they didn't challenge themselves. It's like, well, they did. It's just teams ended up just not living up to the hype of what we thought was going in the preseason. That's like, I would love for the NCAA Tournament committee to look at preseason expectations and then what ended up happening, because you can't penalize a team for a bad schedule if everyone thought it was going to be a good schedule in November.
This is kind of crazy, but you know who they remind me of? And I might be off here, but you remember a couple of years ago when SMU had Shake Milton, Sterling Brown?
Yeah, when they were the 6th seed?
Yeah, and they were the USC. They got USC in the first round, and everyone was talking about how they were kind of a sleeper Elite 8 type of group, and Jankovic at that point was like the man, and now he's not. But they kind of remind me of that team, I feel like. They're not deep at all.
Oh, I think they are deep.
Are they? I mean, I don't see it.
I think they are. I know they don't play a lot of bench minutes, but I think they have the potential to if they need to. Right? Like, you're talking about guys like like Jordan Brown's a 5-star recruit that just hasn't played a ton of minutes.
Sure.
So if he's coming in, you feel okay about that talent coming in, right? Like
I guess
we need to go deeper in our bench where you can look at a guy like him. Obviously you have the Martin twins, Jazz Johnson, Jordan Caroline, Trey Porter, Trayshawn Thurman is like their top 6. But, Corey Henson, I like him. And like I said, you can bring in a Henson and a Jordan Brown as your, 7, 8 guys.
Yeah, I guess with Trey Porter, he kind of fell off towards the end of the year. I think he only had one double-digit game, after like February 16th or something. I looked at that. I don't know. I guess on the surface, they kind of just look like a team that has more of a limited bench. And I feel like they're just kind of like, I thought that the top 10 ranking at the beginning of the season was a bit ridiculous. I don't know. They just seem like that mid-major. I think that's going to flounder. I will say this, though. They're not going to lose to Florida in the first round. I see that as a trendy pick.
It's going to be an interesting game because they both like to get up and down.
Sure. And I like Florida. I bet on them a lot towards the end of the season. I think they have a nice mix of kind of with a Nembhard or Locke, and they have obviously an older player like Kayvon Allen. But I don't know. This just seems like a spot for Nevada just to kind of right the ship a little bit. I mean, I think they're getting almost too much respect here, Florida.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Florida's hot coming down the end of the year here, which obviously helps. But Nevada, like, this is why you have the Martin twins. It's a game like this, right? Like,
yep,
you can hand the ball to Martin. On one hand, one side of the floor, you can hand the ball to Caleb Martin and say, "We need buckets. Go ahead." On the other side of the ball, you can put Cody Martin on, if it's Nembhard, if it's Locke, if it's Allen or Hudson, whoever's playing well, and say, "Go lock him down," because Cody Martin's a good defensive player. So that's why you have them here. Now they have to go do their thing. And I trust them. Like, we saw them win last year. And I know it was like 2 weird games, 2 comebacks, 2 crazy games, but they also now know what it's like to win in the NCAA tournament. I think that does matter for this group.
Marquette Murray State, obviously a big one. Murray getting 4.5, 5 here. I think it's all about supporting cast. Obviously, the 2 up front, Morant and Howard, are fantastic. They can go both go for 40 at any point. But clearly, Riggs, it's going to be about the supporting cast, I think. Marquette kind of dwindled towards the end of the year, but we all know, comparing the end of the year till now is kind of dumb because we all know that teams kind of turn it up and the most random teams make a run. I thought Marquette was capable of a run kind of in the middle of the season. What do you think in this game? It's all going to come down to supporting cast, won't it, in this one?
Yeah. Yes and no, because when you have stars like Morant and Howard, sometimes it doesn't need to matter what the supporting cast does. Like, if one of them goes off for 40, it doesn't matter what the other guys do. You know what I'm saying? So
sure.
I think it's interesting because I do agree. Like, I don't think it's going to end up coming down to what star ends up outscoring the other. I do think it ends up coming down to the supporting cast. That's why I do like Marquette. Like, Murray State supporting cast it's not great.
Reeks, here's a good question. This is a great question for someone on the chat. Okay, so let's say each player scored 25 points, who wins the game?
Marquette.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, give me Marquette because
close, or do they cover?
What's the line you've seen? What's your line?
4.5.
4.5.
Is it 75-72 game, or is it 80-71?
It's probably both. They scored 25. It's probably like 76-68.
Okay, yeah, kind of similar. Yeah, that's a great question, but
I'll trust the Hauser brothers over anybody else.
Yeah, I guess for me, like, I kind of
like Howard can drop 25, but the Hausers can each drop 18.
Sure,
and Murray doesn't have that.
Sure, and Theo John and Chartunoy, who was up at Fordham for many years. They have, I guess, a decent supporting cast, but I like the way
it's okay. It's an okay, like,
yeah. Or
Marquette does have a good supporting cast. I'm sorry, Murray has like that okay supporting cast where I don't know. Do you really trust if Howard and Morant play to a draw? Do you really, like, again? That's where it ends up being. What supporting cast do you trust?
OVC, right? I get you.
And I'll take the Big East team.
No, I don't disagree.
And Marquette, and then again, you talk about the line. Marquette's such a good free throw shooting team at the end of games that 4.5 ends up shrinking a little bit.
Sure, that should be a fun game. All right, Riggs. Obviously, Gonzaga #1. Who's their? I mean, is it Florida State? Are they the biggest competition here? I think it's Texas Tech. What do you think?
I mean, I like Texas Tech to come out of the region.
Riggs, we never really even talked about Texas Tech because we went down that rabbit hole. Beard. Talk about Texas Tech.
So it depends what Texas Tech shows up. Like,
yeah.
Texas Tech's offense before West Virginia for 6 weeks was one of the best offenses, if not the best offense in the country. Probably one of the 3 best offenses in the country. Like, they were shooting an unbelievable percentage. They were scoring 80 points. You had Moretti and Mooney just simply not missing. Owens just grabbing offensive rebounds and putbacks.
But what about the offense before?
That's average.
Kansas, right?
Right, that's average.
Yeah.
And that's the concern is, does it revert back to that where it's get the ball to Culver and hope for the best? Right. Because, I think it's somewhere in between. I don't think that, I don't think they're going to go and score 80 points every game in a row, but I also don't think it's as bad as it was before that Kansas game. And if it's that with that defense, man, that team's championship level good.
Let me ask you, Riggs. I have a ticket off prop swap, 33-1 on Texas Tech. Would you sell that ticket or keep it?
The only reason I'd sell it right now is because that bracket's so loaded.
Yeah, it is tough. That's a rough.
If Texas Tech was almost in any other bracket, I would hold it and hedge. But that, I don't know, man. Like, they could lose in the second round.
Here's my thing also. I did one August 26th. I was at the Golden Nugget in Las Vegas. I took Virginia 15-1.
I'm on Virginia 18-1 in the preseason.
And you're keeping it.
I am. Mostly because I just like being right.
Yep.
And I hit Villanova 25-1 last year. That was my preseason pick last year.
Yep.
So I'm hoping for 2-2. And I like
you and I know you're not a Tennessee fan because you're a Kentucky guy. I hate Tennessee just because I like to hate them and their fans hate me and stuff. But
their fan base is the worst.
Can you elaborate on that for a few minutes? Because you don't know how much hate I get from that group. I think they're – look, again, I'm not attacking them personally or culturally. I think they're imbeciles when it comes to sports. I mean, they laud themselves as this terrific SEC program that should be up there with football with Alabama and Auburn. And then in basketball, we have to talk about them every year in the SEC. And it's just like, well, I mean, what have you all really won here? I mean, you haven't won the SEC since what, 1979?
Yeah. Like, I'll give them credit. Like, their fans, even when Tennessee basketball was not great, like, their fans always showed up. So I'll give them credit. Like, they were always there, but it's just like,
what else is there to do in Tennessee, Riggs? Let's be honest.
Well, that's true, but like, they just like they scream and like they can't acknowledge who they are. Like,
sure, yeah, they're.
I remember I wrote a blog like, it makes no sense that this Tennessee team is good because they shouldn't be. Like, they shouldn't be good with the roster setup.
You're so right. You are so right. I've been thinking that. I watched it the other night. I said, how does this team win these cutting? I don't get it.
And it turned it. And credit to him, it's because Jordan Bone is one of the best point guards in the country. Like, he's the most dangerous player they have. Grant Williams has turned into a very good, consistent player. Admiral Schofield and Grant Williams both turned themselves into NBA talent. But it just didn't, like, if I showed you this roster and where they came from and how it's made up and the fact that they play through this mid post and low post and then I showed you Kentucky and I showed you Duke and I showed you Gonzaga and I showed you Virginia and you would say, well, these teams have to be better.
Yeah,
and I remember like Tennessee fans were just like, well, it's typical just because we don't one and done. It's like, well, that's not necessarily the point I'm trying to make here. Like, I'm giving you credit for being very good for a roster that doesn't seem like it should be good. Everything's an attack. And I get that because most fan bases think everything is an attack on them. But it seems like this year more than any other, Tennessee fans sure think everything.
And it's always fun because they always, like, I remember when they beat Kentucky the other day. I was getting, well, a big man, remember you said they were a fraud? What happened? And then
it doesn't show anything. Like,
then they shit the bed the next day, and it's like, oh, well, where are you guys at? Didn't hear you.
Right. Like, Tennessee won that game because Tyler Hero ended up turning the ball over, and Kentucky collapsed down the stretch.
Yeah, he wasn't a hero. Right.
A thing that Kentucky hasn't collapsed down the stretch ever this year.
No.
So it's like,
good point.
What was the outlier here? Was it Tennessee forcing them to do it, or was it Kentucky's, just one collapse? So it's like, what if Tennessee doesn't win that game? They don't win that regular season. They lose in the semis. Like, what are Tennessee fans screaming about then still?
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, Kentucky really hasn't, and that's been kind of the big thing for them. Usually every year they have that kind of lull where consistency is a problem. And, I'd be interested to hear, you would agree that a lot of that has to do with Reed Travis and his senior leadership and, just what's been the difference for them? Because, they always do have that seemingly run where it's kind of like, oh, well, what's up with Kentucky? They have so many great athletes.
Well, they did have that. Yeah. When they lost the season, in the early year, they got killed by Duke, struggled in Southern Illinois.
But usually you find it like in the beginning, like kind of in the middle, where they kind of just maybe, I don't know, lose interest. I don't know.
Well, even then, when they lost Alabama, then they were down early against A&M, went down early against Vanderbilt. Georgia was close in the first half.
I remember that. Yeah.
And then they won at Auburn, and then it kind of turned the corner again.
Yeah.
But so they kind of had that there, where there's that. But the difference this year is they're a really good 3-point shooting team, and they're a really good free throw shooting team. So the two flaws that everyone kind of looks at in Calipari coach teams is free throw shooting and 3-point shooting. Well, they have multiple guys that can do both this year. So I think it's a lot easier to close a game and make, a 7-point win against an average team, all of a sudden a 15, 16-point win. It doesn't look as bad on paper.
You've got to be rooting heavily for Seton Hall. You don't want to see Wofford in the second.
I don't know, man.
Fletcher McGee. Come on, Rick. You got to agree.
But sure, but Miles Powell and the fact that Seton Hall knows they can beat Kentucky because they already did.
True, good point. But the 3-point defense for Kentucky is pretty disastrous.
It is, but again, yes, Wofford's Wofford does scare the hell out of me. Wofford's a damn good team, but at the same time, Wofford's losses have come against better talent.
Do you hate that draw there?
I don't love it. Yeah,
that's tough.
What's weird is I think it opens up after that. I think they're fine against Houston. As much as I love Iowa State, I think they're fine against Iowa State. Obviously, Georgia State, Ohio State, let's say they get through. I'm cool with that. So it's if they can just beat, and I think they match up well against Carolina or Kansas or Auburn, whoever's coming out of the top half. So it's if they can get out of the second round, I feel okay about them getting to the Final Four.
That's kind of my thought. That's I actually have Kentucky at I think 12-1. I didn't get a great number on them, but Riggs, we got a guy on here saying that he thinks Colgate's going to beat Tennessee. How great would that be?
I mean,
Matt Lango's team beats Colgate. That'd be so great. They're actually not a bad team. Will Raymond's really good. They got the Lithuanian kid down low.
Yeah, the kid from Northwestern.
Yeah, they're going to slow that one down. How great would that be if they beat Tennessee?
I mean, I would love it just because of all Tennessee fans in my mentions.
It'd be epic.
But it ain't going to happen.
No, it ain't going to happen. There's not going to be any Norfolk State, Missouri action here.
No, the two 15 seeds winning in the same day.
All right, Riggs, 2 questions, then we'll wrap it up. So is Texas Tech your biggest competitor to Gonzaga? Or is it Michigan? Who is it?
I think I think in order, I'd go Texas Tech, Florida State. I mean, there's a lot.
Michigan?
Shit.
If Michigan gets to the Final Four, you have to agree that there's no way John Beelen's not the best coach in the country. With this draw and they get to the Final Four, that's a murderer's row.
I mean, yeah, I won't argue his X's and O's, but when you have to factor in, to me, the best coaches in the country, you have to factor in everything. So you have to factor in recruiting, you have to factor in being able to sell the program. Beeline's a top 6, 7 coach in America. Don't get me wrong.
He's also has no interest in being a slimy guy either.
So I mean, sure, but it's also the factor in coaching. If you're just telling me, all right, you're starting a new university and you have to hire a coach.
Is it him? Right.
Who you what's your list of who you're calling essentially they say yes no matter what. Now X's and O's, I mean, he's up there for best, he might be the best in the country. I don't know, man, Michigan's offense, I just don't trust.
No, me either.
So I trust Texas Tech's offense more, and I think their defense is a little bit better than Michigan's defense. I trust Buffalo's offense. I don't know how much I trust their defense, but again, Buffalo's offense. I trust Florida State, I think, a decent amount. Yeah, like, man, that I think I had Texas Tech. The moment it came out, I had Texas Tech in my Final Four. I still think I'm going to do that, but I don't know. Like, I kind of want to put Florida State there. I kind of want to put Gonzaga there. Like, I think it's going to be one of those three.
Yeah, I don't disagree. All right, Riggs, a couple questions, then we'll let you go. We have some people asking them here. First one here. Can we establish something when picking brackets, defense is more important than the tourney? I mean, you would agree with that, right? I mean, defense is important.
To a degree, like, you still have to score. I think, people get so caught up in that of, well, this defense is so good, defense travels. And it's like, yeah, like, that's true to a degree. Like, it absolutely true. But you also need to be able to you can't win 2-0. And, you kind of look at recent winners like Villanova, historically great offense last year. UNC, known for their offense. Villanova the year before, great shooting team. Duke in 2015 was an excellent offensive team that it did. Now, this is where the defense argument comes in. Duke won because they had an unprecedented historical 6-game run defensively in the tournament. Like, from what they were to the regular season to what they were in the tournament, we've never seen anything before or like that since. So it's a little bit of both. Like, you do need to be good defensively, but you also can't just suck offensively.
What's more likely? LSU gets bounced first round or makes Elite Eight? They're not losing the first round.
I think they make the Elite Eight.
Yeah, I agree.
I think I'll go Elite Eight.
Yeah, I agree with that one. How important is a big showing here, at least Final Four for John Calipari? Come on, man.
I mean,
that's not – it's John Calipari to make the Final Four. He's not getting canned.
Listen, no. And I don't even think Kentucky fans are, like, annoyed. I mean, the only Kentucky fans annoyed with them are the ones, like, the super old people that are like, we need seniors all the time, and we need to start recruiting Kentucky better for whatever reason. Listen, he'll still make the Final Four, like, 46% of his career at Kentucky. Mm-hmm. Or I guess 40% now. He has a national title. He's made UK completely relevant again. He's made UK cool again. Like, all that stuff goes in there. I mean, the dude was a Luke May shot away from a Final Four. He was a late, just unable to score a bucket plus a shot clock violation away from winning an undefeated national title. That's the beauty and the worst thing about the NCAA tournament is coaches kind of get judged on that from, like, a fan perspective, right? Like, Tony Bennett never made a Final Four. Sean Miller never made a Final Four. They're perceived as underachievers. Cal's perceived as an underachiever because he only has one title. Do you know how difficult it is to win 6 games in a row in a one game scenario? Like, if it was a series and he's done what he's done, I can understand a little bit of the argument there. But in a 1 game scenario, like, man, if he loses in the Elite Eight to Carolina, are people really going to be that upset?
Exactly. Great question here. Why isn't there any visual? Because we're not the best looking people in the world, Bleds, and we don't really feel like doing our hair and looking good. That's why
I'm wearing pajama pants, a hoodie, and slippers. I haven't slept in like 10 days. I'm good, man.
He isn't looking like he wants to get on camera. 1 or 2 more. Ranked power conferences. What do you got?
ACC 1, Big 12 2. SEC and Big 10, 3A, 3B, however you want to put them there. Big East.
AAC.
And then, I mean, pick whoever you want after that. I mean, the AAC is better than the Pac-12 this year.
All right, this is a question for me, Reed. Who's the best handicapper at Barstool? And I want you to pick one. Can't say yourself.
I don't know, man. Like, I don't know, like, everybody's record or anything like that. Like, everyone.
But let's say this. Let's say you need a win. Who are you going to for confidence?
I don't know. Like, it's a good question, man. I'm trying to think. Like, I'll say this. Like, Dave and Dan both are, like, they go with what they trust. And I think there's some value to that. Like, if you trust this team and you're confident in this team and you ride that team and you're not afraid to stand by it, I think that's a sign of being a good handicapper because you're not gonna sit there and second guess yourself, right? Like, and that's half the battle, right? You lose that heartbreaker when you're on, let's say you're on Temple, you lose that heartbreaker. Next game rolls around, you think you like the line, and then you start remembering what happened. Are you still going to stand by that team or not?
Mm-hmm.
So Dave and Dan, I listen. What they do is a show, but I'll tell you what, like they put in the research. It's not like they just sit there and pick a name out of the hat. Like I will give both of them credit. Like and even Marty does a ton of research too, and I know he's a character, and God love him. But I'll say this: like I would probably call Dan first, just because I think I trust Dan the most. But I'll tell you what, the three of them, God love them. They do put the research in. I know some people try to knock them, but hey, I mean,
I think they're way better handicappers than the lead on. I think.
Exactly. And when you go out there and you're putting your stuff out in public every day and you're putting on a show, like, listen, you're gonna have bad years, you're gonna have bad days, you're gonna have bad weeks. When it's documented and when it's out there, and for especially Dave and Dan and million people are watching, it's easier to get made fun of when you lose. And listen, you're picking a number one way or another. Who knows what happens from there?
No, you're dead right. I think if you say to me, other than basketball, you know who I would pick, Riggs? Jack Mack.
Jack's great with football. I talked to him quite a bit during that. I love that dude, man. He's a great guy. And
great stuff.
He's watching a ton of football too. So he's one of those that he can sit there and tell you, like, he's all in like the whack and like, Jack, I need to be bailed out late. Give me a whack winner.
Oh, he likes everything. Yeah, he's a great blogger.
Yeah, he's a good guy.
I don't want to keep you all night, but a lot of people are asking about Cincinnati, Tennessee, which could be
that'll be an interesting one.
Do you think Cincinnati will first beat Tennessee and Columbus? And another one, this guy Chris saying, all Tennessee hatred aside, if they get past Cincy and Cincy, don't you think they are the type of team to create problems for Virginia? Long, athletic. I think that's a great point by him. That's my big concern for Virginia. Can they get past Tennessee? Again, I like Jack Salt and guys like that, but it's going to be tough against Williams and Schofield, and I think that's Virginia's biggest concern. I feel like.
Yes and no, because listen, like Jack Salt does start, but like you can pull out Jack Salt and play Diakite, Key, Hunter, Guy and Jerome. Like,
true.
Can Tennessee stop that?
Mm-hmm.
And I just trust Virginia's defense blindly. But the Tennessee-Cincinnati thing, like, that's becoming a popular thing, and I get it. Like, games in Columbus, it's an hour and a half from here in Cincinnati. Cincinnati fans are going to pack that place. Like, Cincinnati fans are dying to travel, because Cincinnati, like, they've complained, they've bitched and moaned about being shipped out west so much lately that Cincinnati fans are going to fill that arena. Because obviously there's a lot of Cincinnati fans in Columbus, and like I said, it's an hour and a half drive, so it's an easy, up and back type thing. There are two ways to beat Tennessee, and we've seen it recently. Auburn, which you spread you out, ton of athletes, bother Williams and Schofield like that, and just spread you out offensively, right? Second way is what Kentucky did the first time, and the semifinal game. You have somebody like a Reed Travis and PJ Washington. Both are kind of bullies in the paint, right? Like, you think about the way that they use their leverage. Grant Williams, probably the best in the country at using his leverage in the post. That's how he gets to where he is in the paint. Reed Travis might be the best defense. That's the one thing Reed Travis does really, really well. PJ Washington's also the same type of guy where he's just kind of a bully in the paint with his body. Cincinnati will beat you up, right? Like, that's what they're known to do. Jaron Cumberland versus Admiral Schofield would be a really good matchup out on, like, that big wing type player. I get it. Like, if Cincinnati beats Tennessee, I'm not necessarily going to be surprised. I'll still trust Tennessee and Tennessee's offense and their talent, but that's going to be close to a road game against a team that's somewhat similar to them. Like, I'm not going to be surprised if Cincinnati wins that thing.
Yeah, it's seemingly almost like a trendy thing now.
It's becoming very trendy, which means Tennessee will win by like 20.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're 100% right. All right, Riggs, final question, and I do believe this is the final one. Who wins this thing? What do you think?
I'm sticking with Virginia, man.
Cool.
I like their break in their bracket. I think they can get out of there without too much trouble. And then you get, UNC or Kentucky or Auburn or Houston or whoever coming, Iowa State coming out of that bottom side. I'm just going to try to pick against Duke. I've been trying to do it all year, and I'll just stick to my guns with Virginia.
Riggs, you are probably one of the best. I mean, you live college basketball, you breathe college basketball. I don't know how much you sleep right now. I know I don't sleep a ton as it is, but I want to leave you with something and a question to make your mind wonder. And I want you to give me a clear answer here. As you know, and I know our friend Jack Mack blogged about this, I've talked about it because I have an unhealthy obsession with the mob. The Gambino boss was killed last week, and it was dictated over the weekend that a 24-year-old nobody killed him because he wanted to date his niece. Do you think he's the dumbest human on earth? Do you think that's safe to say? I mean, seriously.
He's up there. I mean, he's one of the dumbest. I'll say that.
Seriously. I mean,
you go after a mob, not only a mob guy, but a mob boss.
Yeah, it's so ballsy.
And the fact that you're just trying to make a name for yourself, essentially.
Go over a girl.
Pick your battles, man. That ain't one you're gonna want. What's best case scenario?
Nothing. You either go to jail for life or you get killed.
Best case scenario is you end up in a different country.
Yeah. How long do you think this kid lasts, Reese? 3 weeks? Mean,
it depends what prison's he going to.
He's going to Rikers for a while, so
yeah. So
it's going to be tough.
It's not going to be pretty there. They got to put him in his own area.
PC, right? Yeah, sure.
They gotta he's got to be under watch 24 hours and by guards that you actually can trust too.
Yeah, complete imbecile.
It's just
imbecile.
I mean, just one of those things. I'm thankful every day that I'm not dumb like that. It's just last thing I'd ever want to do is try to go after a mob boss. It could be anything. I could be 100% wrong. It's or he could be 100% wrong. Be like, nope, you're right. I was in the wrong here. I hit you. You hit me. You didn't hit me.
Yeah, it's a ballsy thing. No woman is worth that. I hate to say it.
Nothing's worth that.
No.
Listen, you got to know, no matter what, if you killing the guy, but let alone hit, literally putting your hands on him. You're screwed.
I mean, people have gotten murdered in the past for even, I remember a story many years ago, the Bonanno crime family. There was a boss named Anthony Spiro. He was pushed by a fellow mob guy, kind of a younger guy, and he was murdered for it. You don't put your hands on, you don't even put your hands on the boss.
No, I mean, it's like I said, it's one of those where you apologize.
Yeah, and or you just go the other way.
Yeah, you got to disappear. If you're planning on killing that guy, you better kill and then be immediately at the airport to fly to some desperate country, somewhere in Middle Europe, and just get the hell out of the way.
Riggs, before we let you go, I want to congratulate you. I know you and your wife are expecting.
Yeah, thank you, man. Thank you.
Great. We don't know the sex yet, right?
Not yet. We find out in a couple weeks.
Will they be a college basketball fan? Of course.
I mean, probably. They're the boy or girl, they'll have a basketball in their crib, I'm sure.
Love it, Riggs. Hey, listen, man, appreciate you taking the time. I know you're very busy.
No problem, man.
Always look forward to talking to you. Riggs, let everyone know where they can find you. You're the king of basketball over at Barstool.
Yeah, man. Like I said, you can always read my work over at Barstool Sports. I always have links out, so you can go to Twitter at Barstool Riggs, REAGS. I'm always happy to interact with people on there as much as I can. And like I said, if you want to read my work, I always have my links out there. So go ahead over there.
Thanks again, Riggs. Always a pleasure, buddy. Thank you.
No problem, man. Have a good one.
All right, guys. As always, thanks for checking it out. Make sure you like and comment. Let me know what you think. If you're new around here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We'll have all sorts of great previews and more as the season continues. Everyone have a great night. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.